Alrighty, welcome back, everyone. We just talked about that Penn State and that LSU win, both overtime wins that they badly needed. They're moving on and feeling very, very good about where they sit in the CFP race and in their conference races. A couple of big wins down the stretch could put them in a very, very good place going forward, maybe getting that bye in the playoff. But we will get to that throughout the season, obviously. But, oh, wrong one. Let's get into this because Bama, Tennessee, Kansas State escaped with some very, very close wins, some wins that they very much needed, and they got them, but there's some issues. No two ways about that. We'll get into South Carolina, Alabama to start here, and another week, another really underwhelming Bama performance. And the thing is, it wasn't for the reasons that we saw in the Vandy game. It wasn't for the same reasons that we saw. It wasn't really the defense. That was a huge problem in this game. Down the stretch, did not play great football, obviously, but the reality was, Alabama got out to a 14-point lead, felt really good about where they were, and then just kind of fell flat. And I don't really know what happened there. I don't know if it's a energy thing. I don't know if it's a mentality thing. I don't know if it's a leadership thing. But this has become kind of a pattern. You saw the Georgia game up 28-0. Looked like those players took their foot off the gas just enough. And it felt like that way in this game. And they let South Carolina back into it. The safety, everything got involved. And it was all over the place. Towards the end of that first half, got back to a 2-point lead for Alabama. And then they just had to gut it out. It was not pretty throughout this game. It was not something that Alabama fans wanted to see after last week's performance. But they're still alive. They got the win. They get to move forward, and being able to figure out all the bad stuff about your team with a win is obviously a lot better than with a loss. But it's one of those things that they're playing with fire right about now, and I could see not only one, but a couple more losses if they keep playing this way. How they were able to win this game is they got the turnover battles. That is absolutely what they needed to do in this game. They won it 4-2. They had less yards. They were worse on third down. They had less time of possession, but they won the turnover battle. And that's really the end-all be-all in a game like this. They were able to get that done and gave them just enough of a buffer in this game. The run defense was huge for Alabama. Lenora Sellers only having 16 or 19 yards on 16 carries. Absolutely huge. Rocket Sanders got going a little bit, but not nearly as much as they needed them to. So really good stuff from that defensive front. Definitely did what they didn't do a week ago and held that run game in check. And then the quick start was huge. Getting that touchdown to open the game made it feel like maybe this was going to be a blowout. Didn't end up that way, but they were up 14 relatively early in this game, and then were able to just kind of ride it out. You were able to figure out what was going wrong offensively and make a couple of mistakes and have a couple of things go wrong, and then you were still able to make that last play at the end of the game. So it's one of those things that you look forward for both these teams. South Carolina, they're going to be a load to deal with. Any team that faces them, frankly, if you do not have one of the top 5 offensive line in the entire country, these edge rushers are going to tear you to pieces. So Texas, Oregon, a couple other teams, you'll be okay. But everyone else, be terrified whenever you play South Carolina, because this is a very, very good team. Not an easy schedule coming up by any means. I don't expect them to finish on a win streak by any means, but they can beat just about anyone on that schedule. So definitely a team to watch going forward. For Alabama, they escaped for the second time this season. That Georgia game got very, very close, and this one was, I don't want to say closer, but very, very close as well. It was very dangerous there, and the issues don't seem to be consistent. The only real one that I can figure out is, for whatever reason, this team does not have the needed mental toughness in those moments, because you're up 14-0, you take your foot a little bit off the gas. You're up 28-0, you take your foot a little bit off the gas, and people are going to come back in those games. They just are. They're going to be able to have the firepower to get themselves back in this. And if Alabama keeps playing that way, where they start fast, take their foot off the gas, let that team back in, they're not going to be successful this year, period. And then we got Tennessee. This one, I don't know how Florida lost this game, guys. I have no earthly idea how they were able to pull that off, but that's Billy Napier. That's what he does. But at the end of the day, Tennessee gets away with one here as well. Frankly, I thought Florida... there's something actually in the game that I'm thinking of. Florida probably should have gone for 2 when they did tie the game late in the game. I just felt like you take your shot when you have it. You have Graham Mertz out. The offense isn't really rolling the way that you wanted it to. Just give them a shot to win that game. But at the end of the day, went to overtime. Tennessee does get the win, and Tennessee has a problem that I did not think they were going to have, and it is Nico Iamaleava. This is something that I felt pretty good about this guy coming into the season, and played really good football to start, but against his Power 4 opponents of the year, 3 touchdowns, 6 turnovers. So they're going to need more from him coming forward, because you can't run a Tennessee offense if you can't have those explosive plays downfield. And especially trying to beat a team like Alabama, that back end is susceptible. If he can't take advantage, then it doesn't much matter. So they're going to have to get that under control. They're going to have to get that figured out, and it can't just be Dylan Sampson. But it was in this game. 27 carries, 112 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was incredible, and he's going to have to carry him in a lot of different ways going on the rest of the season. Incredible back, one of the best in the entire country, and he's more than enough for the challenge. But you keep asking him to do all of these things, at some point it's going to catch up to him. That's just the reality of football. But in the second half of this game, Florida had really nothing going offensively, but especially in the run game. Montrell Johnson going down early in this game absolutely was huge for Tennessee, really hurt Florida. Definitely one of those things that he was rolling right along. I believe had 6.5 yards per carry, was absolutely tearing people to pieces. And then he went out, and he ended with 40 carries, 138 yards, and 3.5 yards per carry. So was not nearly the team that it was with Montrell Johnson on the field, and they're going to need him on the field and playing really good football going forward. I tend to believe they're probably going to need Graham Mertz as well, and it doesn't seem all that great that he's going to be back. Hate that for him. Very, very talented player. But also, living in the backfield kind of goes with that second half run game. They had 3 sacks, 12 tackles for loss in this game. They were all over the place. A ton of guys got involved in that one, and it was one of those things that you knew Florida was going to be kind of taken advantage of by that D-line, and they did plenty in this game. No two ways about that. So where they go from here, this one hurts for Florida. No two ways about that. It felt like a moment where you could kind of flush all of the terrible stuff of this season away and just for a moment feel really good about your team, get that big win, go home, be partying, all of that type of stuff. But you come up a little bit short. And frankly, I think it's just kind of the microcosm is probably a better way to put it, of Billy Napier's time at Florida. They play really good football. They have really talented players pretty much all over the field. They have guys that can make plays. They have a couple of moments to win games, and then Billy Napier just makes the wrong decision. And it's one of those things that's been happening the last couple of years. Florida fan knows what's coming. Everyone knows what's coming, but at some point it's going to have to, and then Florida can really get started. I hate to say that, but the reality is the rest of the season is about staying upright more than anything else for Florida. And then for Tennessee, same boat as Bama. You got to be careful. Going forward, you have everything still on the table. So many things you can do this year, but the reality is you got to be able to execute at a really high level. You got to be able to get Nico Iamaleava going, and if you can't, you're going to be in a ton of trouble going forward. But going to be incredible to watch those teams going forward. It's one of those things that I don't know how to think about them, if I'm being totally honest with you, but as of right now, I do think they're really good teams. I do think they have every ability to bounce back and go forward. Obviously, whoever wins that game this upcoming weekend will feel in a much better place. I would argue that's kind of an Ole Miss LSU situation where you lose it, you're probably out of the CFP. If you win it, you have a very good chance of getting in. So going to be a crazy game up there, and we'll get to that in time, but we're going to take our second break here. We will get to that Kansas State-Colorado game here in 2 seconds, but wanted to push that to the fourth segment here, running a little bit long on time, so had to push that just a touch. But, in fact, what am I talking about? I have time to do this. What am I doing? Let's get forward with this, because the reality is we got to talk about this game. I have a little bit more time here to do it than I thought. But Kansas State, Colorado, huge game over there in Boulder, lived up to the hype. Colorado, anytime they're in a football game, just go ahead and tune in, because it's always going to end crazy. But the reality is KSU had a chance to put this game away, up 10 in the fourth quarter. And then Colton Hood picks off Avery Johnson, takes it back to I believe the 5-yard line, sets up a Colorado touchdown, and this game changes in a second. It was pretty much done away with, if I'm being totally honest. But Colorado has that thing. They have that thing that keeps them back in games, and frankly, that thing is named Shedeur Sanders. He's absolutely remarkable. Pretty much took the team on his back the way he does in a lot of these games. Had almost 400 yards passing. I believe 34 for 40 in the past. He was just incredible. And especially with Travis Hunter, with Jimmy Horn leaving with injuries, a lot on his plate, and he answered the bell. But I said going into this game that Colorado was going to assert themselves as Big 12 contenders in a loss. I think that's exactly what they did. They're a team that's still walking a pretty fine tightrope. You're not going to be able to run the ball. You're going to have to be able to throw. They had negative 29 rushing yards in this game. So you're not going to be able to run the ball. You're going to have to throw the ball. You're going to have to play opportunistic defense. But they continue to do that. Pretty much every single week, they're able to answer the bell. So they are very much a contender in my eyes as we go forward. How they were able to win this game, Kansas State, or Avery Johnson's fight in this game was huge, because if you watch that BYU game a couple of weeks ago where they just got torn to pieces, there was a pick early on in that game for Avery Johnson. He crumbled. He had no answer after that. He did not necessarily look very confident out there by any means. This game, he was able to bounce back. You give away a pick like that, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. But he responded right away, 50-yard touchdown to Jace Brown, and really did everything that this team needed him to do. So it's a huge, huge step in his development, and one that he very much needed to take after that game at BYU. And then you had a cushion in the fourth quarter. This is going to be a huge thing for every team that plays Colorado going forward. Make sure you have a lead in that fourth quarter, because Colorado's got some magic up their sleeves. They always do with Shedeur Sanders, with all of those receivers. They're going to make plays. You have to make sure you have at least 10 points, because KSU had 10 points, and that was just enough to win this one. But the reality is, getting that 10-point cushion was huge in this game. There's a reality where Colorado could have come back anyway, but anyone playing Colorado, if you can dominate the third quarter, set yourself up for a comfortable fourth quarter, you're going to feel okay at least. And then, as it is with frankly a lot of Colorado matchups, the other team dominated the line of scrimmage, and in a lot of different ways. Now, this D-line for Colorado did get home a ton. I don't want to take anything away from them, but KSU was all over Shedeur Sanders. 6 sacks, had 8 hurries in this game. On the other side, DJ Giddens had 182 yards rushing, 5 yards per carry, was very effective. Now, the Colorado defensive line did a really good job of getting pressure, but didn't get home too often. Definitely one of those things that they're just going to have to continue to improve on year over year, and at some point, they'll be a really, really good team in that front. I think Jordan Seaton is going to develop into an absolute monster over there. And then where they go from here, I think for Colorado, this team is for real. The schedule coming forward is going to be a nightmare. They got a lot of games that could go either direction. They got a lot of games against teams that are very physical and are going to run the ball. So a lot of things to figure out. No two ways about that. But this is a really good team. This is a team that has every ability to beat everyone on that schedule, to possibly go to the Big 12 title, and then we'll see what happens. I'm still a little bit wary of that happening. I tend to believe they're going to fall somewhere in the 8-win, 9-win, probably 8-win mark if I had to imagine. But at the end of the day, nothing is off the table for this team. Definitely a tough loss, but you only have one loss in conference, so have every ability to bounce back. K-State stayed in the fight. That was what this game was about. It was about getting that win, being towards the top of the conference, and allowing yourself a seat at the table that is getting more and more crowded by the week. But if Avery Johnson's confidence continues to roll, this team is going to be scary down the stretch. They can win every single game, and they can win it fairly comfortably. But now we'll take that break that I was talking about a little bit ago. We'll take a break here, and when we come back, we're going to get to a couple other top 25 games. We'll get to Texas just domination in the Red River rivalry. We'll get into Georgia struggling once again. We'll get into BYU rolling Arizona, and so much more right after this, so stick with us.